Ellen Wilson had perfect grades, a spotless record, and a future bright enough to blind you. But the second her brother walked into that parent-teacher conference wearing his motorcycle club patch, everything changed. Teachers whispered, parents judged, and Ellen? She made a decision that would shake that entire school to its core. Ellen Wilson sat in the third row of folding chairs in the school's conference room, her hands folded neatly in her lap, watching William like she was defusing a bomb. He'd worn his nicest jeans, the ones without holes, and a plain black button-down. But the leather vest was still there. The patch on the back, embroidered in silver thread, Iron Wind Riders MC. She'd begged him to leave it home. He'd looked at her like she'd asked him to cut off an arm. Ellen's performance this semester has been exceptional. Mrs. Clark, her calculus teacher, was saying, top of the class. We're confident she'll be a strong candidate for the regional scholarship. William nodded, arms crossed loosely. She works hard. She does. Mrs. Clark smiled the way people do when they're trying not to stare at something. Her gaze kept sliding past William's face to the silver embroidery on his back. The guidance counselor, Mr. Davies, shuffled papers. We've also received her college prep timeline. Very ambitious. Stanford, MIT, Brown. She can handle it, William said. Mr. Davies cleared his throat. Of course. We just want to ensure she has a stable support system. The air shifted. Ellen felt it like a cold draft. Miss Caldwell, her English teacher, leaned forward. Ellen's essay submissions have been remarkable. There's a statewide competition coming up, and I've already nominated her piece on resilience and family. William's expression softened. Yeah, that's great, Elle. Ellen managed to smile, but her stomach was twisting. Mrs. Harper from the PDA hadn't said a word since William sat down. Now she spoke, voice carefully measured. We appreciate you coming, Mr. Wilson. It's important for students to have involved guardians. The word involved hung in the air like an accusation dressed up as concern. Vice Principal Rawlings glanced at his watch. Well, I think we've covered everything. Ellen, keep up the excellent work. Mr. Wilson, thank you for your time. Wait, William said. What about her honors physics class? She mentioned the lab partner situation wasn't working out. Rawlings blinked. Oh, well, we can address that with, and the debate team schedule, William continued. She's got regional qualifiers the same week as her scholarship interview. Can we move one? Ellen watched Mr. Davies and Rawlings exchange a look. She caught it perfectly. We'll look into it, Rawlings said, standing. But we really should wrap up. Busy evening. 12 minutes. That's all they'd given him. William had driven nearly an hour to get here, would drive another hour back, for some minutes of tight smiles and loaded pauses. Outside, in the hallway, Ellen heard them before she saw them. Two voices, low and sharp. Didn't expect him to actually show up. Did you see the vest? A motorcycle club. I looked it up. They have a criminal history. Ellen froze. William was 20 feet ahead, checking his phone. She's a good kid, but with that kind of influence at home. Intimidating is what it is. I felt uncomfortable the entire time. Miss Caldwell's voice cut through. He asked thoughtful questions about his sister's education. With a criminal record, Margaret. I checked. Felonious assault. Prison time. People change. Do they? Because I'm not sure Ellen is really safe. Ellen didn't hear the rest. The hallway tilted slightly, sounds going distant and muffled. William looked back, caught her expression. You okay? She nodded. Lied. In the truck, he didn't start the engine right away. That was weird, right? Yeah. They think I shouldn't be here. Ellen stared at her hands. They don't know you. No, William said quietly. They don't. He started the truck. Neither of them spoke on the drive home. That night, Ellen sat at her desk, staring at her scholarship essay. The one about second chances. About a brother who'd made mistakes but taught her what real strength looked like. About how falling down doesn't matter if you get back up. She replayed every moment. Mrs. Harper's careful pauses, the way Davies couldn't stop shuffling those papers, how quickly Rawlings stood up once William started asking about debate schedules and lab partners. She thought about the voices in the hallway. Intimidating, criminal, unsafe. She picked up her phone. Typed before she could second-guess herself. The text was simple. Miles? It's Ellen. I need to talk to you about something. Can I stop by the shop tomorrow? The response came fast. Anytime, kid. Your brother's family. That makes you family too. Ellen set the phone down and returned to her essay. But now she was writing something new. Something sharper. They'd made a mistake tonight. They'd seen a quiet girl who'd accept their verdict without pushing back. They were about to learn otherwise. The auto shop smelled like motor oil and burnt coffee. Ellen pushed through the side door Wednesday afternoon, backpack slung over one shoulder, and found Miles elbow deep in an engine block. He didn't look up, but his voice carried over the classic rock bleeding from a paint-splattered radio. William's out on a parts run. Should be back in 20. I'm here to see you. That got his attention. Miles straightened, wiping his hands on a rag that might have been red once. Road captain of the Iron Wind Riders, 50-something, with a scar that split his left eyebrow and eyes that missed nothing. Coffee's hot. That's about all I can promise. Ellen poured herself a cup from the ancient machine in the corner and told him everything. The meeting, the hallway, the words that kept looping in her head like a skipping record. Miles listened the way he diagnosed engine trouble. No interruptions, tracking every detail, waiting to hear where the real problem was. What do you want to do about it? There's another meeting Friday. Follow-up for scholarship candidates. Parents and guardians required. Ellen met his eyes. I want them to see who William really is. Who you all are. You want backup. I want the truth to have a bigger voice than their assumptions. Miles studied her, then nodded slowly. William's family, which makes you family. End of story. He pulled out his phone. Let me make some calls. Thursday, Ellen went through her classes on autopilot. In English, Miss Caldwell handed back essays with comments scrawled in green ink. Ellen's had a note at the top. See me after class. The room emptied. Miss Caldwell leaned against her desk, arms crossed. I submitted your piece to the state competition early. The preliminary judges sent feedback. She paused. Ellen, they're calling it one of the strongest entries they've received in years. The word caught in Ellen's throat. Really? You're writing about your brother. The honesty, the complexity. It's extraordinary. Miss Caldwell hesitated. I've been teaching 20 years. I've read thousands of essays about family. But yours, she shook her head. You write about him like he's fully human, flawed and trying and real. Most students turn their subjects into villains or saints. You just wrote the truth. He's the only family I've got, Ellen said quietly. Miss Caldwell was silent for a beat. I heard what happened at the conference, the hallway conversation. Ellen's spine went rigid. I didn't agree with what was said. For what it's worth. Miss Caldwell's expression was careful. But I also didn't speak up loudly enough. I'm sorry for that. Ellen wasn't sure what to say, so she just nodded. This meeting Friday, Miss Caldwell started. Will be different, Ellen finished. She spent Thursday night rehearsing what she'd say. By Friday morning, her plan was set. Then she texted Miles. Still good for 3 p.m.? 7 of us. Dressed respectful. We'll follow your lead. In the shop across town, Dodge was pulling on a clean black shirt, checking his reflection in a grimy mirror. Former addict, 3 years sober, now running intake at the community center's recovery program. He caught Tommy's eye. You nervous? Tommy, broad-shouldered and quiet, shrugged. Haven't been in a school since I got my GED in county. Yeah, I'm nervous. Ray was in the corner, showing Miles a photo on his phone. This was last week. Supervised visit with my daughter. Judge says if I stay clean another 6 months, I get weekends. You'll get there, Miles said. William arrived last, confused. What's everyone doing here? I thought we had a ride this afternoon. Miles looked at him. Change of plans. Your sister needs us. For what? Parent-teacher conference. We're going as your backup. William's face went carefully blank. She didn't tell me, because you would have said no. Miles's voice was firm but not unkind. She's fighting for you, brother. Least we can do is stand with her. 15 minutes before the meeting, Ellen stood in the school parking lot, watching 7 motorcycles roll in like thunder made visible. They parked in a neat line. The riders dismounted, checking patches, straightening vests. William walked up to her first. Don't, she said. Don't tell me I shouldn't have done this. Don't tell me it's too much. His jaw worked. They're going to talk. Let them. Ellen's voice didn't shake. I'm tired of being quiet while they decide who you are without knowing you. Dodge appeared at William's shoulder. Kid's got spine. Wonder where she learned that. Tommy smiled, rare and genuine. We doing this or what? Ellen turned toward the school entrance. Through the glass doors, she could see staff setting up chairs in the gym. Mrs. Harper was already there, arranging name tags. Mr. Rawlings was checking his clipboard. Ms. Caldwell stood near the back, watching the parking lot. When she saw the motorcycles, her expression shifted. Not fear, but something like recognition. Coach Berman, the Vietnam vet who taught PE and rarely spoke to anyone, was suddenly at the window too. His eyes tracked the group with the stillness of someone who'd learned to assess situations quickly. Ellen took a breath. Okay, let's go. 7 patched members of the Iron Wind Riders walked toward the school behind a 15-year-old girl with perfect grades and a point to prove. Inside, someone dropped a clipboard. Every conversation in the gym died mid-sentence. The only sound was shoe leather on waxed floor. Ellen walked in first, chin up, and the bikers followed like a wave of leather and purpose. They took seats along the back wall, hands folded, spines straight. Waiting. Mrs. Harper's hand went to her throat. Rawlings's face did something complicated. Confusion bleeding into alarm, bleeding into barely controlled panic. Parents who'd been chatting turned to stare. Miss Wilson, Rawlings said, voice strained. This meeting is for students and their immediate guardians only. William's my guardian, Ellen said clearly. They're with him. This is highly irregular. They're not here to disrupt anything. Ellen's voice carried across the gym. They're here because last week, this school judged my brother based on what he looks like instead of who he is. So I brought people who actually know him. Miss Caldwell, seated with the other faculty members, leaned forward slightly. Coach Berman, arms crossed in the corner, didn't move but his eyes sharpened with interest. Rawlings opened his mouth, closed it. We can't simply allow. Let them stay. Coach Behrman's voice cut through like a blade. I want to hear what they have to say. The vice principal looked trapped. Around the room, other parents shifted uncomfortably. Someone's phone buzzed. Nobody moved to silence it. William stood slowly. The room tensed. A mother in the 3rd row pulled her daughter closer. Someone's phone buzzed and nobody moved to silence it. He walked to the front, facing the staff and parents, and when he spoke his voice was level. Calm. My name's William Wilson. I'm 28. I've been Ellen's guardian since she was 9, when our parents couldn't take care of her anymore. He paused. 6 years ago, I made a choice that cost me 3 years of my life. I got into a fight outside a bar. It went too far. Man ended up in the hospital, and I ended up in prison for felonious assault. Someone gasped. Mrs. Harper's face went white. I'm not here to make excuses, William continued. I did the time. I deserved it. But when I got out, I had to decide who I was going to be. The Iron Wind Riders gave me work when nobody else would. They gave me a community that held me accountable. And they helped me become the kind of man my sister could be proud of. He looked at Ellen. She's the best thing in my life. Straight A student, class president, writing essays that make grown adults cry. And last week, I heard staff members call me intimidating. Heard them question if she was safe with me. His voice cracked slightly. That kid has every reason to give up on me. But she hasn't. Maybe it's time you follow her lead. The gym went still. Then Dodge stood. He moved to the front, hands in pockets, and addressed the room like he was running group therapy. Name's Dodge. I'm a former addict. Lost my job, my family, my house, everything to meth. Did 2 stints in rehab before it stuck. He pulled out a laminated card from his wallet. 3 years sober next month. I run intake at the community center now. Help other addicts find treatment. William was one of the first people to tell me I could do something that mattered. Tommy went next, his voice rougher. Tommy Clark. Got my GED in county lockup when I was 22. Learned welding in a prison program. He held up the certificate he still carried. Now I teach it to kids who remind me of who I was. Kids the system's already writing off. William helps me run the shop classes on weekends. Ray stepped forward, pulling out his phone. The photo showed a little girl with braids, maybe 7, grinning at the camera. My daughter Mia. Haven't lived with her in 2 years because I made mistakes that scared her mother. I'm fighting for custody, staying clean, doing everything the court asks. His voice wavered. William's been teaching me how to be the dad she deserves, how to rebuild trust one day at a time. Miles introduced himself next. Road captain, the one who'd pulled more brothers back from the edge than he could count. Then Priest, who ran the shop and hired people nobody else would touch because he'd been one of them once. Snake spoke last, his voice quiet, talking about the kids he coached now, the ones who reminded him of who he used to be. When they finished, the silence had weight to it. Coach Berman uncrossed his arms and walked to the center of the room. He was 65, grizzled, with hands that shook slightly from old shrapnel wounds. I went to Vietnam when I was 19, he said quietly. Came back at 21 with a purple heart and nightmares that lasted decades. For years, people crossed the street when they saw me. Thought I was dangerous, unstable. He looked at William. Nobody asked what I'd been through. They just saw the damage and decided who I was. He turned to Rawlings. We don't get to pick where we come from. We don't get to choose our worst moments. But we damn sure get to choose who we become after. He gestured to the bikers. These men are doing that. And this school is punishing a kid because her brother had the audacity to survive his mistakes. Miss Caldwell stood abruptly. Her voice shook. Ellen wrote an essay about redemption. About her brother teaching her that falling doesn't make you weak. Staying down does. She looked around the room. That essay is going to state finals. It's one of the most powerful pieces I've read in 20 years of teaching. And we almost missed it because we were too busy judging the person who inspired it. Mrs. Harper cleared her throat. Everyone turned. My brother. She stopped, started again. My brother struggled with addiction for 15 years. He's been clean for 2. I don't talk about it because I'm ashamed. Her eyes were wet. But watching Ellen stand up for her family, I should have done that for mine. Something in the room loosened. The air felt different, less like judgment, more like people trying to figure out what came next. Rawlings stood, looking cornered by his own prejudice. Perhaps judgments were made prematurely. Ellen finally spoke. My brother's not perfect, but he's mine, and he's here. That counts. William's hand found her shoulder. Nobody clapped. But when parents filed out, several stopped to shake William's hand. Firm grips. A contact. The kind that meant something. Coach Berman approached last. Your sister's lucky to have you. William's voice was rough. I'm the lucky one. The gym didn't empty. People stayed, shifting weight from foot to foot, like they needed time to understand what they'd just seen. Ellen stood near the front, William beside her, and watched the room reorganize itself around a truth nobody had expected to confront on a Friday afternoon. Mr. Davies, the guidance counselor who'd shuffled papers and avoided eye contact last week, approached cautiously. Ellen, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions about your home situation without asking questions. You made assumptions about my brother without knowing him, Ellen corrected. Davies nodded, properly chastened. I'd like to schedule time next week to discuss your scholarship applications. All of them. No rushed conversations. William extended his hand. After a pause, Davies shook it. Across the gym, Mrs. Harper was talking to Dodge, gesturing animatedly. Ellen caught fragments. My brother's counselor never? And, wish I'd known programs like yours existed. Ray stood awkwardly near the bleachers, still holding his phone with Mia's picture displayed. A parent Ellen didn't recognize, Mr. Peterson, whose son was in her physics class, stopped in front of him. My nephew's in the system right now, fighting for visitation with his kid. Peterson's voice was gruff. What program are you using for your case? Ray blinked, surprised, then started talking. Within minutes, Peterson was taking notes. Ms. Caldwell approached Ellen with a folder. I printed your essay, the full version, not the edited one I submitted. She handed it over. I want you to read something out loud. The passage about your brother teaching you to ride a bike after he got out. When you wrote about him being more afraid than you were. Ellen's fingers went cold. Now. Miss Caldwell raised her voice slightly. If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment. The room quieted. Ellen felt every eye turn toward her. Ellen's essay, the one advancing to state finals, is about family, resilience, and second chances. I'd like her to share a piece of it with you. The part that made me cry in my empty classroom at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. Ellen's hands trembled as she opened the folder. William squeezed her shoulder once, then stepped back. She found the passage and began reading. When William came home, he was different, quieter, careful with his words like they might break something. I'd imagined his return for 3 years, built it up in my head, this triumphant moment where everything went back to normal. But normal was gone. We had to build something new. Her voice steadied. He bought me a bike from a yard sale, painted it blue because he remembered that was my favorite color when I was 9. I was 12 by then, and I'd already learned to ride at a friend's house, but I didn't tell him. We went to the park, and he ran beside me holding the seat, breathing hard, telling me I could do it. He was more scared than I was, not of me falling, of failing me again. So I pretended to wobble. Let him catch me. Let him be the person who taught me to fly. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone prove they've changed. Ellen's voice cracked on the last sentence. She looked up. Miss Caldwell reached for a tissue. Mrs. Harper covered her mouth with both hands. Coach Berman kept his eyes on the floor, but his jaw worked like he was chewing on something he couldn't swallow. Tommy, the welder with his prison GED, spoke from the back. That's beautiful, kid. William turned away slightly, shoulders rigid. Ellen knew that posture. He was fighting tears. Principal Sanders appeared in the gym doorway. He'd missed everything. Someone had called him Rawlings, most likely, expecting a crisis to contain. Instead, he found this. Bikers and parents talking quietly, his English teacher crying openly, and his star student holding an essay like a shield. What's going on here? Sanders asked. Coach Berman answered. Education. Real kind. Sanders looked at Rawlings, who seemed to shrink under the gaze. We had concerns about appropriate guardian presence. These men have contributed more to this conversation about Ellen's future than we did in 3 scheduled conferences. Miss Caldwell interrupted sharply. Maybe the concern was misplaced. Sanders scanned the room. Parents talking quietly with bikers, his English teacher openly crying, his vice principal studying the floor like it held answers. Whatever he'd expected to find, it wasn't this. "Miss Wilson," he said finally, "I'd like to discuss creating a peer mentorship program, something that connects students with community members who've overcome significant obstacles. Would your brother and his associates be willing to participate?" Miles stood. "We'd be honored." The meeting dissolved after that. Parents filed out with phone numbers exchanged and promises made. Mr. Peterson left with Ray, still talking about custody lawyers. Mrs. Harper invited Dodge to speak at the next PTA meeting about recovery resources. Ellen and William were the last to leave, flanked by the Iron Wind riders. In the parking lot, under the glow of fluorescent lights and a darkening sky, Dodge stopped and looked at Ellen. "You did good today, kid. Took guts." "I just told the truth. That's the part that takes guts," Snake said. William walked Ellen to his truck while the others mounted their bikes. He stopped her before she climbed in. "You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did. Because you would have done it for me." Ellen paused. "You have done it for me. Every single day." His voice came out rough, breaking on the last word. "I'm sorry you had to fight for me." "I'm not." She met his eyes. "You taught me to stand up. I just decided to stand up for you." The bikes roared to life behind them, a chorus of engines and loyalty. William pulled Ellen into a hug, quick and fierce, then let her go before either of them completely broke down. Monday morning, Ellen sat in English class with a blank document open on her laptop. New assignment: write about courage. She knew exactly what to write, because courage, she'd learned, had nothing to do with not being scared. It was about loving someone enough to make a room full of strangers see them the way you did. It was about 7 men in leather vests choosing vulnerability over intimidation. It was about a teacher admitting she'd failed to speak up, and a coach recognizing shared wounds across generations. Courage was her brother, walking into that gym knowing he'd be judged, because Ellen asked him to. She started typing, and the words came easy. The essay opened with a memory: 7 motorcycles in a school parking lot, and the moment she realized family wasn't about blood or records or patches. It was about the people who showed up when it mattered. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to let others define the people you love. What would you do if someone you cared about was judged before they even had a chance to speak? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to embrace the journey for more stories that remind us what really matters. See you in the next video.